Often in mathematics, I am given some objects and I want to get new ones from them by means of some natural construction. For example, the polynomial ring. Here I have two ideals I and j in some ring, and I will construct their sum, intersection and product ideals. The first two constructions naturally apply to any family of ideals. If I take intersection of all ideals in this family, then this is automatically an ideal, just like intersection of subgroups is a subgroup, and similarly for normal subgroups, vector subspaces, etc. Simply because intersection is automatically closed under whatever operations. I will use this idea of a subrings also. The intersection of I alphas is the largest ideal contained in each I alpha. If I want an ideal that contains each I alpha, then I can start with their union. But this may not be an ideal because it need not be closed under addition. So I can close it up by taking the ideal generated by this union. You can check that it is enough just to take all finite sums of elements from this union. And we call this the sum of the ideals I alpha. Abstractly, this can also be seen as an intersection of all ideals that contain this union. Finally, I times j as a set product will not be an ideal in general because again it need not be closed under addition. So I just take all sums of such pairwise products, and again this is an ideal that I call I times j. A couple of remarks. I and j may be proper ideals, but I plus j need not be proper. You can construct easy examples. I intersection j will contain ij because both I and j absorb multiplication by anything. Okay. It is nice to have abstract definitions, but we must see examples, and so we first go to our favorite examples, integers and fx. But in fact, we will do this generally for any PID, which is short for principal ideal domain, and this is exactly what it says. It's an integral domain in which all ideals are principal. So first examples are z and fx, but we will see others later on. For example, the ring of Gaussian integers. So in this exercise, I am asking you for a general PID to take two principal ideals and find out what you can say about their product, intersection and sum. So please do this right now. AR times BR is ABR for any ring. The intersection of AR and BR consists precisely of common multiples of A and B. Because I am in a PID, this intersection ideal is generated by some L. Therefore, any common multiple of A and B is also a multiple of L. L itself is in this intersection, therefore L is a common multiple of A and B. Thus, L deserves to be called LCM of A and B. The LCM because any other generator of this ideal is L times a unit. So you should check all the details carefully and write them down. Next, the sum of AR and BR is also known to be principal, so generated by some D. Now, A is in this sum and so is a multiple of D, as is B. In other words, D is a common factor of A and B. Moreover, D is of the type AX plus BY, so any other common factor of A and B would divide AX as well as BY, and so therefore would divide D. In other words, D meets the very definition of GCD of A and B. Okay. Exercise. A third iteration of homework 0, this time for a general PID. You may not have long division here, but we still have GCD equal to a linear combination. So use this to prove equivalence of two definitions of being a prime and then unique factorization. Existence requires a new idea but is not very hard, so see what you can do. One last comment about this. When A and B have GCD 1, the sum of their principal ideals is the entire ring and intersection is equal to the product, as you can check. There is something like that true for a general ring, and you will see this on the homework. We come to the all important quotient ring R mod I. Here R can be any ring, possibly non-commutative, and I is a two-sided ideal strictly contained in R. You already know R mod I as an abelian group, so let's review that briefly. The elements of R mod I are equivalence classes of a relation on R, where two elements are considered equivalent if their difference is in I. The equivalence class of A is denoted A bar and consists of A plus every element in I. These are called cosets of the additive group I. Left or right does not matter because addition is always commutative. You add cosets by picking representatives in them and adding them in R. So, the coset of A plus the coset of B is by definition the coset of A plus B. All this works just because I is a subgroup under addition of R. Automatically normal, therefore addition of cosets makes sense. Okay, so far we used only the operation of addition. If you weren't completely comfortable with all of this, then I suggest that you stop and work through everything that was said on your own until you get comfortable, because we will be using this like 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay. The interesting and new thing is to define multiplication in R mod I, which we do exactly like addition. So the coset of A times the coset of B is by definition the coset of AB. Let's check that this is well defined. So suppose that A prime and A are in the same coset, so their difference X is in I, and similarly B prime and B with their difference Y also in I. I have to check that A prime B prime and AB are in the same coset. In other words, their difference is in I. So let's calculate, and I have set up the calculation over here. So please do the calculation and check that it works. Opening the parentheses gives me 4 terms. AB is the one I want, and I claim that the rest is in I because each one of the 3 terms is in I. AY is there because Y is in I and I absorbs multiplication from the left. For the next term, use absorption from the right, and for the last one, use either left or right. So I have shown that multiplication is well defined in R mod I. It is associative and distributes over addition because the operations come from R and there these properties are true. Notice also that the coset of 1 works as the multiplicative identity and it is different from 0 because I is a proper ideal. So I have proved that R mod I is indeed a ring. After proving this, I can summarize everything by means of the quotient map pi from R to R mod I. This takes any element A to A bar, which is its coset, also known as A mod I or the congruence class of A. Now the ring structure on R mod I is defined in such a way that this map pi is a ring homomorphism. Just look at the formulas here and also this fact. Another remark, the kernel of the quotient map is precisely the ideal I. So this brings us full circle. We started out by saying that any kernel is a proper ideal. Now we can say that any proper ideal I is a kernel, namely of the quotient map from R to R mod I. Okay. At this stage, we would normally be doing examples, and you do know one example, namely Z mod NZ. We will do lots of examples in the next class and throughout the course. But for now, let's use quotient rings to identify two very interesting classes of ideals. We now return to commutative rings. Here we know that there are two particularly nice kinds of rings, integral domains and even nicer, fields. So this brings in a natural question. For which ideals I is it true that R mod I is an integral domain? And likewise for the field. So of course we want the answer purely in terms of the ring R. So see if you can do this. Let's see when R mod I is a domain. By definition, in R mod I, this means that when a product of cosets is 0, one of them must be 0. Now, a coset being 0 is equivalent to any representative being in I. Also, A bar times B bar is the coset containing AB. So this definition amounts to the following statement in R. Whenever AB is in I, either A must be in I or B must be in I. Under this condition, I is called a prime ideal. This condition can be checked purely in R, but remember that it is equivalent to R mod I being a domain. Next, let's see when R mod I is a field. First, a definition. A proper ideal is called maximal if it is maximal with respect to containment. In other words, any ideal properly containing I must equal the entire ring. Sometimes a reformulation is useful. So, let's suppose I have some A not contained in I. Then the smallest ideal containing both I and this A is I plus the principal ideal generated by A. Therefore, maximality of I is equivalent to this ideal always being equal to R. Okay, with this, try to show that I is maximal if and only if R mod I is a field. Also try to do these two exercises. Let's show that when I is maximal, R mod I is a field. So take a non-zero coset A bar and we'll find its inverse modulo I. Because A is not in I, the ideal AR plus I is strictly bigger than I, and I being maximal, it must be the entire ring. Therefore, it must contain 1. That means there is a B in R and X in I such that AB plus X is 1. But that means that AB minus 1 is in the ideal, and so AB and 1 are equal modulo I. So B bar is the required inverse. To show the converse, just run the same argument backwards. We'll see a less bloody proof of this basic fact next time based on the correspondence theorem for ideals. Next, a maximal ideal is automatically prime because a field is an integral domain. Just for kicks, you can try to prove this without using quotient rings and it should work, but see what happens. Finally, examples. In Z, prime ideals are precisely the ones generated by prime numbers and the ideal 0. Of these, all except 0 are maximal. In Fx, the answer really depends on the field. So see what you can find out over these fields. In class, we will discuss all these examples in due course.